The SEC coaches have spoken, and the preseason All-SEC team has been released, and the Crimson Tide absolutely dominated this list, placing 15 individuals on it. We need to talk about what this means for the Tide going forward, because I suspect at the end of the year, this list could look very similar, and I cannot wait to get into it all. Before we do, as always, you know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you agree with this list? And then let me know where you thought the players would end up. Were there individuals that you thought would crack this list that didn't? Or were you surprised that some of them cracked the list? I cannot wait to hear what y'all are thinking. Let me know. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And I have a lot of cool stuff planned for the upcoming season that I would love to have you a part of. And if you enjoy this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions are massive. But with all that being said, let's talk about it. And like I said, Alabama absolutely dominating this list, placing 15 individuals on it is impressive enough. But when you really look at the first team alone, it gets even more impressive because the Crimson Tide placed 7 individuals on the preseason first team All-SEC list. 2 on offense, 5 on defense. And let's talk about these 7 because we have John Mechie, Evan Neal, Phidarian Mathis, Christian Harris, Will Anderson, Malachi Moore, and Josh Jobe. And we'll start with the offensive guys. Evan Neal, to me, is a no-brainer on this list. He looks to be the next first-rounder from the Alabama Crimson Tide along that offensive line. If you follow Alabama football, you've probably seen the videos that Alabama has released on Twitter and the strength and conditioning staff have released, talking and showing how unbelievably talented Evan Neal is. I mean, he's doing box jumps at 300 pounds that I could only hope to accomplish in my dreams, and even in my dreams, I'm pulling hammies and failing miserably. So that goes to show you how athletic Evan Neal is. That athleticism is going to make him so wanted in the NFL draft. I can't wait to see the season he has because I think the eyes of NFL scouts everywhere are going to be closely watching Evan Neal. But the same can be said for the next offensive guy, John Mechie. And every time I talk about John Mechie, I have to bring up that I think his season last year was seriously undervalued. This is an individual who averaged over 16 yards per reception. He had less than 100 yards away from a 1,000-yard season in a year where Waddle started hot, Devontae Smith finished in historic fashion, and the whole time Najee Harris ate. Through all that, he found himself on the precipice of 1,000 yards. This is a really talented individual, and I think we can kind of lose sight of that thinking about Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, but I always want to bring up, Mechie almost was at 1,000 yards last year and averaged 15+ yards per reception. He's a very capable receiver, and I, for one, am ecstatic that he returns to headline this Alabama wide receiver room. Because though it is talented, it will experience growing pains, but once those pains are settled, my goodness gracious, there are so many dudes that can hurt you in so many different ways. I just can't wait to see it all come together. That wide receiver room is going to be so much fun. But now let's look at the defensive side of this first team, where Alabama put the lion's share of the first team production on this list. 5 individuals. And whether we're talking about Phidarian Mathis, Christian Harris, Will Anderson, Josh Jobe, or Malachi Moore, all are names that the eyes of the college football world are going to be watching. Let's start up front with Phidarian Mathis. It's not hard to figure out why he is such a big piece for Alabama this year. He has experience, he's been in the program, but with Alabama losing Barmore, we're looking for someone to step up because Alabama has got pass rushers in troves. They've got them sitting in the cupboard, man. Let me tell you what. But now we're looking at that interior position, which is loaded with talent. We're just figuring out who's going to do what, and it's a position group in its entirety I can't wait to see, but having it headlined by Phidarian Mathis is going to be of major importance to the Crimson Tide. Let's talk about the 2 linebackers briefly because I don't think much needs to be said. The Crimson Tide, in my opinion, have the deepest linebacker room in college football, no matter how you slice it. The middle linebacker combination of Christian Harris and what we believe to be Henry To'o is ferocious and as athletic as you could possibly want. Christian Harris, a unbelievably athletic linebacker, used to play the defensive back position in high school at an unbelievably high level, has now translated to that inside linebacker position for the Crimson Tide, and Henry To'o transferring from Tennessee as the signal caller for the inside linebacker position, placing on the second team is another individual we have to watch. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But the Alabama linebacker room is unbelievably stacked. And the name I think everybody is going to be the most interested in, Will Anderson Jr. And you know, I am at the front of that line. Will Anderson Jr., I think, is set to be the best pass rusher in college football at the end of the season this year. I thought he was a top 3 pass rusher in college football at the end of last season, at the end of a freshman campaign with no normal offseason and where he had to learn on the fly. Watch the Missouri game again, and you'll see game 1, he is shining in his ability and what he's going to be doing in the future. Nick Saban said he has been wreaking havoc and that he has become a more complete player. If you watch what he did last year and now you think about Nick Saban with that kind of praise, that's terrifying. I feel so bad for every tackle that has to go up against him this year, but as an Alabama fan, I don't at the same time. He's going to have such a fun season to watch, man. I can't wait. And finally, the 2 defensive backs that find themselves on the first team list for the preseason All-SEC team, Josh Jobe, Malachi Moore. Both individuals that Pro Football Focus highlighted earlier in the offseason as guys they thought were top 5 at their respective positions returning in college football. I absolutely agree with both of these selections. I think Jobe is going to be a really big piece for Alabama. Very lucky he returns. It allows for experience to continue in the secondary. But it's not just him. We look at Malachi Moore, another individual like Will Anderson that was thrown into the fire last year, and all he did was flourish. I can't wait to see what Malachi Moore does with another year under his belt, but there's a lot of names in that Bama secondary that I think are going to really surprise people by year's end that we're going to be talking about. Malachi Moore, absolutely one of them, but watch out for Brian Branch, man. That kid is so unbelievably athletic, but the secondary for the Crimson Tide has names, and they have a lot of them. Let's talk about the second team, because on second team, we have Jaleel Billingsley, Emil Ekiyor, Jordan Battle, and Henry To'oTo'o. Focusing on the offensive guy, Jay Bill is one of the biggest mismatches at the tight end position in all of college football. Let's not get that mistaken. He is a wide receiver that has the frame of a tight end, but the athleticism of a wide receiver. He can hurt a defense in so many different ways that I think he's going to be a big part of this Alabama offense. I know we've heard a little tough with Saban and there's some friction. I wouldn't worry about it at all. This is a very talented individual, looks to be a big part of this Alabama offense. He and Latu are in for a big year. Ekiyor, offensive lineman, very talented, looks to be another guy to continue the Alabama to NFL pipeline along the offensive line. Jordan Battle, To'oTo'o, the 2 defensive guys. Jordan Battle now returns with a bunch of experience in that secondary. He's going to be a big piece for that secondary, and we're very lucky that he, Malachi Moore, Josh Jobe, have all of the quality experience they do. It's going to be a major plus for the Crimson Tide, but the same can be said about To'oTo'o. I understand he didn't play at Alabama, but Tennessee runs a very similar scheme. Him coming in seems to be a seamless transition, and all we've heard is praise levied upon the young man. And finally, on third team, we have Brian Robinson, LaBryan Ray, Reichard, the kicker, and finally Chris Allen. First and foremost, it feels great to place a kicker on this list because last year Reichard was infallible. He didn't miss at all. Hopefully that production continues on to this season, because that, as an Alabama fan, was a foreign feeling watching our field goal kicker dink in field goals from 50 plus. Had me on the edge of my seat every time we attempted, but nonetheless, I was a happy guy. Brian Robinson is an individual I've constantly said I think he's in for a big year, but he is not in for an easy year, because as much as he has to prove, he has to also fend off Jace McClellan, Trey Sanders, Roydell Williams, and Kamar Wheaton. That's the most stacked unit in the nation as far as running backs are concerned, 3 former 5-stars. But Brian Robinson is a guy I think when he played Ohio State showed the physicality he ran with. And as a Tide fan, I think all of us are very excited to see that physicality week 1 against Miami, who actually struggled against the run against North Carolina. I've talked about him before. That's why I think that game is going to be ultimately an Alabama victory, because the Alabama running back game is just way too deep. They have so many options, and Miami has really struggled stopping the run. The defensive guys, LaBryan Ray and Chris Allen. It is unfortunate as can be that LaBryan Ray is still dealing with lingering issues. Hopefully he gets on this field sooner rather than later, because this is an individual that if he was to put together a healthy season, I think at the end of the year we could be talking about him on second or first team. That's the ability he has. It's just all about if he can get healthy enough to play that full year. And finally, Chris Allen. Chris Allen, I'm so happy, came back for the optional senior year this year and chose to do another year because he had such a solid year last year, recording the most sacks he's had in his campaign at Alabama. And I thought that he could easily continue that into this year because it was almost like a light light went off in his head last year, and he was a different player, a really productive player. And if he even repeats the success of last year, he's going to be a guy draft scouts can't wait to get because he's going to be a great value pick. And he is going to have a future in the NFL. He's another name that you know is talented when you look at who he's fending off behind him. A bunch of 5 stars. Chris Allen is someone who I am absolutely excited for him to have a big year, because as an offensive line, you can't double anybody on Alabama's front because someone else is going to come and get you. Let me know what y'all are thinking. It was surreal to see Alabama dominate this list, and it's incredible and only a testament to the recruiting and the development that Nick Saban has done when you think about them placing 15 individuals on this list the year after they lost so much to the NFL draft, which isn't unique to last year for Alabama. We know what they do, but this is just once again another sign and a testament to what it is Nick Saban has been able to accomplish in his tenure. It is why he's the GOAT. Hop down to the comments, let me know who y'all are looking forward to. That's it. See ya.